Sex is like the workout and foreplay is like a warm-up. Sure, you can get into the real deal right away, but foreplay is what separates good sex from bad sex. And the same is applicable to the gym. A warm-up can either make or break your workout. If done right, you'll capitalize on making some sweet gains. If done wrong, well, the exact opposite will happen. In this video, we're going to apply the current literature to the upper and lower body warm-up to get the most out of our workouts, because some of the more traditional warm-ups don't really help with the workouts and are a waste of time, or in fact they might even hurt your progress. Now, if done correctly in the long term, those few extra gains you were able to make in one workout will add up and eventually get you the desired physique faster. Now, of course, we don't want to warm up for over half an hour to get the tiny extra results. It should be quick and effective. So that's why before we go to the actual warm-up, I think it's important to define our goal and make sure that our end result ticks off all of the boxes. First of all, our warm-up should help prevent injury if possible. This is to prevent having to take long breaks because of the injury and therefore missing out on a lot of gains. Secondly, the warm-up should increase our performance. If we're able to lift more weight due to the warm-up, we're going to be able to get more muscle growth in the long run because we get more training stimulus. Thirdly, the warm-up should be very short yet very effective. There is no use in doing a very long warm-up just to get slightly more benefits if you could have just used that extra time to do a few other exercises. And fourthly, the warm-up should be science-based, because of course that's what this channel is about. Now, these are the four main points on which I am going to focus in this video, and I'm going to go over the warm-up in chronological order in just a second, and I will also put up a summary of the full warm-up at the end of the video so you can use it in your next workout. There are three main parts of which a warm-up consists: the general warm-up, the dynamic warm-up and the sports-specific warm-up. We're going to start with the first one, which is a light cardiovascular warm-up, but there are a couple of key things to note here because it's not entirely as simple as it might seem. The goal of this is to raise core body temperature and the temperature of the muscles, which are two separate things but are achieved by the cardio we're doing in the beginning of the workout, and we can find exactly what we're doing in the name warm-up. We're warming up our body. First and foremost, this review article looking at 170 studies does note that the majority of the research shows a positive effect of warming up on performance, mainly because it facilitates muscle contractions, making the contraction speed more efficient. So how fast you can perform a repetition. And thus this allows you to lift more weight. And it also possibly increases glycogen availability, which basically means that your muscles will get glycogen faster, allowing you to do a few more extra reps. They even pointed at a study that found that an increase of 1 degree Celsius can improve muscle performance by about 2 to 5%, which is very significant. However, there is one key factor on which we need to take a look at, which is going to be the outside temperature. The authors note that when the environmental temperature is elevated too much, research suggests that the warm-up might actually have adverse effects if done incorrectly. But before we dive any deeper into this, it's important to make a distinction between passive warming up and active warming up. During the passive warm-up, you use an external heat source to warm up your body, like for example a jacket or even a radiator. The active form is for example the cardio, where you actively move to warm up your muscles and such. Here you will have to use your own energy to heaten everything up. And this means that when there is, for example, a heat wave, we might want to limit the intensity and the duration of the cardio because we're already passively warming up from the heat wave. Some might even suggest that cooling down during the exercise or before it might actually even be better. But this also does depend on what you're used to. For example, someone living in heated conditions might have no problem at all training in 30 degrees Celsius, but I definitely will. So here is what I suggest you do. If the heat is becoming relatively uncomfortable, I'd try to cool down a bit before you work out and then do a small set of low intensity cardio to still relatively warm up your muscles. In this case, 3 to 5 minutes will already be enough. If it's cold, you might actually want to warm up from 5 to even 15 minutes while wearing some clothes to also passively warm up. The intensity should stay relatively low for both heat and cold situations, since we don't want to waste any energy before we actually start working out. So breaking a light sweat is what I personally recommend. And in general, whenever you're having that light sweat for a minute or two is probably going to be the point where you can go to the next part of the warm-up. And this will define the duration of the cardio, and we also want to make sure that we're not only warming up our core body temperature but also the temperature of the muscles. So we have to use the exercises according to the muscles which we're going to train. For example, for a full body workout, the elliptical might be better because we're moving all our muscles. For only the upper body, rowing, and for the lower body, cycling might be a better option. This can also, for example, be cycling or jogging to the gym. The article I mentioned earlier is mainly looking at swimming, running and cycling, but what about resistance training? I mean, is warming up also going to increase our performance here? When I was looking at one massive recent narrative review, I found exactly that. Most studies published do point at the fact that warm-ups help increase performance, but according to the authors, the most optimal type or combination of warming up is still relatively unclear. But we're going to look at that later on, so it's safe to say that warming up will help improve our gains. But remember that we also wanted to make sure that our warm-up helps prevent injuries. But this is a very controversial topic amongst researchers, but this recently mentioned review notes that warming up helps decrease joint stiffness, allowing us to move more freely. And for that and many other different reasons, I personally think that it does help decrease injuries. And I also found that this review shed some light on this situation. They found that 3 of the 5 studies which they looked at did see a significant decrease in injuries, while the other 2 seem to be a bit too focused on stretching. In my opinion, this means that there is a very realistic potential upside to warming up in decreasing the risk of injury if done correctly, and it's also a very hard topic to research. I mean, you can't purposefully get someone injured, so I personally do see this as an absolute win for warming up, but this could also be my own personal bias. But the evidence on performance is very conspicuous, so you should probably warm up anyway. The following part of the warm-up is going to be the dynamic warm-up. With this, we're mainly going to do some type of dynamic stretching, because lately there has been a lot of buzz going around that static stretching before training actually even worsens performance. But I do quickly want to mention this review article that found this to be the case when these static stretches were over 1 minute long, but not with shorter stretches. However, they do also say that more research is needed. So we're going to keep it at dynamic stretches at the moment. Now you can do this 2 different ways, namely standard dynamic stretching or ballistic stretching, where you really move explosively, but this study noticed that regular dynamic stretching seemed to be better to increase performance, and that's why I'm going to opt for this as well. And if you want to learn more about stretching, I made a video a while ago about it, so you can check it out with the link in the description if you want to. But while doing the following exercises that I'm going to show, keep in mind to do them in a controlled manner while not really trying to exert much force. Okay, so now for the lower body stretches, we're going to do some leg swings from front to back as well as side to side, and this will loosen up the hamstrings, quadriceps, ab and adductors. I generally just do this until I feel loose enough, but a general 12 to 15 reps should suffice. I also like to do some deep squats to really loosen everything up and get everything going. If you're often very tight in your lower back, I recommend doing some quick rotations rotations like this with a slight bend in your legs, otherwise you're not really stretching your back. If it's really tight, you can do some sort of a scorpion stretch, which I find to instantly help relieve tension. And you can also do this other one, of which I don't know the name, so let's call them hands to toes. The calves are generally more flexible, so they don't really need any specific exercise, and for the upper body it's best to start off with some arm circles, doing these in both directions, and this will loosen up about every muscle around the shoulder. Again, for all these stretches, doing it for about 12 to 15 reps or until everything feels loose enough. After that, I recommend doing some arm swings while keeping your arms a bit bent to really unwind the pectoral and back muscles. If you have a weak rotator cuff and you get injured a lot around your shoulder, I highly recommend doing some internal and external rotations. You're best off doing this with cables while keeping your elbow and shoulder in about the same position. This will warm up some commonly neglected muscles that often cause shoulder pain. Before we go to the last part, we can also do some pre-activation exercises if you really struggle to get that good mind-muscle connection with a certain muscle, or you want to isolate it a bit more. For example, doing a cable lat pull-in with very light weight before going to pull-ups because you want to isolate your lats a bit more can be very helpful. You're simply going to really focus on feeling that muscle you want to isolate with light weight so you don't fatigue it too much. And this has also been shown in a couple of studies. For example, this one that found that more vastus lateralis motor units were recruited in the leg press after doing some lightweight leg extensions while focusing on the quadriceps. However, this isn't really necessary and might even stretch out your warm-up a bit too much, but it's still interesting to note for the more advanced lifters of you out there. Now we finally get to the sports-specific warm-up. This is where you basically do the movement that you're about to perform but with a lot lighter weight and build up to your working weight. There is also research suggesting that sports-specific movement can help boost performance prior to commencing exercise. And that's because you're basically preparing your brain to lift the heavy weights. And this is mostly done for bigger compound exercises and shouldn't really be done for the small isolation exercises. For this, you first need to determine your working weight, which is basically the weight that you want to lift for a given exercise. For this example, let's take the barbell back squat and about 100 kilograms because it's easier to calculate with. I'm first going to just use the bar for about 12 reps, then use 50% of the working weight for about 6 to 12 reps, 65% for 6 reps, 85% for 3 reps, and then 90% for about 1 or 2 reps. The weight is just going to feel much lighter because your brain progressively gets used to the increase in weight. Now you don't really want to rest too much in between sets because that's going to make our warm-up very long, but for those last sets you can rest for maybe 30 seconds to a minute. And you don't have to do this for all the compounds on your training days, especially when you're, for example, already done squats and then you go on to the leg press. It's basically the same movement with the same muscles, but doing a couple of quick sets is still advised if you have the time. Now we've covered the 3 most important parts of the warm-up, and now you're maybe thinking, well, why don't I just go straight to the sport-specific warm-up because I'll warm up my body and such as well during that. And to that I say, I don't really know 100% for sure if it's best to do all 3 separately. Because at the moment the research on the optimal combination is limited, as stated in a review I mentioned earlier. But the authors as well as myself do speculate that getting the benefits from each one separately is going to lead to the best results. So in my opinion, this is going to be the best warm-up routine for the upper, lower and full body. I use this myself before every workout and it doesn't really take much time because you don't really have to rest between each set like you normally would. It also checks the 4 boxes from the beginning of the video, so we can finally close down this chapter and enjoy those sweet extra gains from the warming up. Or hold on, please open the book again, because this is going to be the start of a new series going over a full body workout, starting with the fundamentals of a workout. And this is going to be my full body Spartan Physique workout, which you can also purchase in full detail with the link in the description. You can also wait for the uploads and then use all the videos together to apply to the exercises and workout. So if you look forward to that, remember to subscribe so you don't miss out on the videos, and make sure to smash that like button to support me on making these videos. In the meantime, you can watch some of my other videos to learn more about building muscle and losing fat. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later.